جوامع الكلم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We're going to continue our series, of course, of the Lamia of Ibn al-Wardi. We're covering two abiyat, two baytain today. في ازدياد العلم إرغام العدا وجمال العلم إصلاح العمل جمل المنطق بالنحو فمن يحرم الإعراب بالنطق اختبل. I'll repeat it. ما أدري didn't go online, it's fine. في ازدياد العلم إرغام العدا وجمال العلم إصلاح العمل جمل المنطق بالنحو فمن يحرم الإعراب بالنطق اختبل. Okay, that's two lines of poetry that we're going to cover today. But before I get into the sharh of it, just so sometimes people question me, Shaykh, when you read with qira'at, tell us what it is. Today I read with Qunbul Ali ibn Kathir, وهو يعتبر من أصحاب الصلة. From the Qurra, there's 5 ruwah that read from Ashab al-Sila. One of them is Qalun an Nafi', and the 2 rawis of Ibn Kathir, and the 2 rawis of Abu Ja'far, which is from the 10. These 5 ruwah, they read with Sila, which is basically humu. I'm sure you heard me saying it. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمُ, right? عَلَيْهِمُ. And then Ibn Kathir, the one I read today, even on the dhamir that's mufrad, he even does Sila there. For example, I said in Surah Al-Balad, أَيَحْسِبُ أَن لَن يَقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ أَحَدٌ. If you know Hafs, what is it? أَيَحْسَبُ أَن لَن يَقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ أَحَدٌ. There's no stretch there. So in this, from Ibn Kathir, he even stretches this, just so you guys have an idea and grasp. He says in the first line, فِي ازْدِيَادِ الْعِلْمِ إِرْغَامُ الْعِدَى. He said, in gaining knowledge, and getting, studying knowledge and attaining knowledge, إرغام العداء. إذا أردت أن تعذب الحاسد فعليك بالعلم. إذا أردت يا أحمد أن تعذب الحاسد، إذا أردت أن تعذب الحاسد ماذا عليك؟ بالعلم. People, if they are your enemies and they do not like you, they don't want you to succeed. They don't want you to have a better job. They don't want you to be successful in your dunya. They don't want anything for you. And the best thing that someone can achieve for themselves as an honor is to be a person of knowledge. And in fact, this can even be applied to our context as Muslims. فِي ازْدِيَادِ الْعِلْمِ إِرْغَامُ الْعِدَاءِ. If we really want to climb up as an ummah, we have to turn back to becoming ummat iqra. An ummah that is about reading, an ummah that is about learning. If we really want to go back to the state as we were then, in a place of honor, in a status of honor, where people would travel to us for ilm and not the opposite, we have to turn back to ilm. فِي ازْدِيَادِ الْعِلْمِ إِرْغَامُ الْعِدَاءِ, which means إِذْلَالُ لِلْأَعْدَاءِ وَجَمَالُ الْعِلْمِ إِصْلَاحُ الْعَمَلِ. And the beauty of ilm is in the rectification of your actions. There's no point and benefit of studying and becoming a person of knowledge if that knowledge does not lead you to pray. If that knowledge does not lead you to become a better Muslim, a better husband, a better father, a better son. If it doesn't lead to action and you rectifying your own affairs, then what's the point of studying all of that knowledge? That knowledge has to lead to action. And I'll mention a story. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, he once came to Umar radiallahu anhu late at night time. He knocked on his door. Umar was like, "What are you doing this late? What do you want at this late at night?" He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'minin, hiya mudhakara. He said, "I want to review some masail with you." He said, "Okay, then if that's the case, then I'm going to stay up with you." And they stayed up doing mudhakara of fiqh. They stayed up doing mudhakara of ilm until it was close to Fajr time. And then Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, he said, now it's almost Fajr time. Why don't we do some qiyamul layl? And then Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, نحن في الصلاة. He said, the ilm that we're doing and we're pursuing, نحن في الصلاة. He said, why don't we go and start praying, meaning qiyamul layl? Umar radiallahu anhu, in response to that, while they were doing mudhakara of ilm, he said, نحن في الصلاة. Right? So studying itself is very tremendously rewarding with Allah Azza wa Jalla. Because you learn more about your Creator and you become a better Muslim through pursuing knowledge. في ازدياد العلم إرغام العدا وجمال العلم إصلاح العمل جمل المنطق بالنحو فمن يحرم الإعراب بالنطق اختبل أو فسد. اختبل means basically فسد. He said جمل المنطق, beautify what you have inside of your head. We have our brains, yes or no? We have our intellect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted us with. How do we express that intellect? Through our tongues, through our speech. If you know someone and you perceive them to be a knowledgeable person, that's because they're able to convey their knowledge in a beautiful way. The person of knowledge that you would assume to be a person of knowledge is because, in fact, they have used their intellect and expressed it beautifully with their words. If someone has a lot of knowledge in their head and is not able to really express that, you wouldn't perceive them to be a person of knowledge. So he says, جَمِّلِ الْمَنْطِقَ بِالنَّحْوِ فَمَنْ يُحْرَمِ الْإِعْرَابَ بِالنُّطْقِ اخْتَبَلَ. And he specifies the importance. Remember, he was talking about studying in general in the abiyat that we covered last week. Now he's saying specifically the ilm of nahu. The ulama, they say, لا ثقة في علم من لا يعرف النحو. You cannot trust someone to be a person of knowledge unless they have studied, unless they are aware of nahu, unless they have studied nahu. And specifically for طلاب العلم, the mashayikh say that the least level that a person of knowledge can study up to is Alfiyat al-Malik. That's a 1,000-line poem, that they study in many of the ma'ahad. I think Sheikh, you studied Ibn Aqil Kaman. And then in our Jami'ah, it was also muqarrar that we do Ibn Aqil for 2 years. So that's the least level. And for Amat al-Nas, I feel like especially, I don't know what it is, but Arabs, they usually don't want to study Nahu. But if you really want to grasp your language, it's not just through shi'r, it's not just through, qasaid, it's also through Nahu. Because Nahu is hudud, it gives you the hudud. For example, the Nuha, they mentioned this example. They say, it's mentioned in Qatl al-Nada and other books, where they say, I'm going to give you 3 sentences by changing one of the tashkil, and you tell me what each one means. They say, لا تشرب اللبن لا تشرب اللبن لا تشرب. Like, don't drink. لا تشرب اللبن وتأكل السمك وتأكل السمك وتأكل السمك. Each one has a different meaning. Who's going to give me the ijab? I don't have a word, but anybody know the difference? Each one means something completely different. لا تشرب اللبن هذا لام نفي وتأكل السمك وتأكل السمك وتأكل السمك. Each one of this different meaning. The Nuha mentioned this. And this example, you can find it in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. This example, you can also find it, not this specific example, but the changing of 1 or 2 things changes the complete meaning of the sentence, changes the i'rab. So, anybody have the answer to this? Okay, the first one. لا تأكل السمك وتشرب اللبن. What does that mean? Yeah. لا تأكل السمك وتشربي اللبن. Which one? What does that mean? So this over here would make it in a way, and it would be understood in this way, because they're both majzoom, that you wouldn't do them together and you would not do them separately. The nafi over here would now be applied to both. Now, if I were to say لا تشرب اللبن لا تشرب اللبن وتأكل السمك, over here now it's going to be mansoob على واو المعية. So now you can do either of them individually, but not together. Do you see that? And if I were to say لا تأكل السمك وتشرب اللبن, that means لا تأكل السمك, but you can drink laban as much as you want. See the difference of one little tashkil, how it makes in 3 different the same sentence, but it gives 3 different meanings. That is the fa'idah of nahu. Many people, they will read, you can't have access to the turath of our classical scholars unless you study grammar. Anybody here go through the Western education system? You went through it. Who else went through it? You went through it. Did they teach us Shakespeare? If you know English well enough, you could read Shakespeare. You could understand it. We had to go through Shakespeare as part of our curriculum. Because our English, we studied grammar growing up. Similarly, if you study Nahu, even though Shakespeare is it's not classical English that we speak nowadays, but we can still understand it. Similarly, if you study Nahu, then you can pick up tafasir that are written 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, 600 years ago, and understand it, as long as you have studied the hudud of how sentences work. If you don't know what's a fa'il, you don't know what's a maf'ul, you don't know what is a dharf, you don't know what is hal, you're making this rafa', you're making this nasab, you're making this jar, tkhabbat al-ma'ani, you're not going to understand. You think you'll understand, but you really won't. So I emphasize, especially for the Arabs, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you a gift. Don't waste that gift and study Nahu, even if it's just Ajrumiyah. Even if it's just the beginner book called Ajrumiyah, make some time out of your day, out of your week to study some Nahu of your language. Alhamdulillah, you could pick it up through speech and through, obviously, you've been hearing it and listening to it for decades in your life, but it's important to know the rules that the scholars have placed. He said, جَمِّلِ الْمَنْطِقَ بِالنَّحْوِ فَمَنْ يُحْرَمِ الْإِعْرَابَ بِالنُّطْقِ اخْتَبَلَ وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.